Hey, welcome back to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking. I'm Susy Botello. I'm your host, and you're listening to episode 203. Not to go into details, but basically this was going to be another Fading to Film edition, and Levi Austin Morris was our guest, but something happened. So therefore, I am recording this new episode with Levi, who made himself available, and so did I. It's the middle of the day, which I never record during the middle of the day unless I'm doing a solo episode, because it can get interrupted. There are many things that happen during the day, including business. So in any case, we're going to do this. You may hear a few little noises here and there and things like that. But other than that, I'm re-recording this episode with our wonderful guest, our friend, Levi Austin Morris. He has some really great news to share. And we're going to discuss some details. And I'll announce that in a second when he gets on here. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody who's listening. And I appreciate that you are here, that you're listening to the show, and that you're following it, downloading our episodes so you can keep them forever and ever and ever and ever. Anyways, all joking put aside, let's have some fun. Let's share some really great information about distribution and also Levi's announcement. If you guys are ready, let's go. Levi Austin Morris, you are a celebrity in my eyes, and one of the major, most inspirational. Okay, before I kiss up so much, you've got a big announcement to make, Levi. What is it?
I do. The announcement is that Paralysis, which, is the film that I've been talking about for probably 3 years, is officially coming out. We got a distribution deal, and our film will be available to rent and purchase on November 5th of this year. So in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yes, that's so awesome. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I mean, 3 years. That's like, you might as well have made Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, except I mean, wouldn't that be nice if with my phone? I made Lord of the Rings with my phone.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Well, Levi, you just a little rehash. When I met you was through an email because you submitted a little film, apocalyptic film.
Yes.
Back for our 2015 edition.
Yeah.
Of the International
90
Mobile
Seconds to Live. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And did I, because I'm pretty sure I did, but just in case, I'm going to ask you if you remember that I emailed you and said, you're a good storyteller.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember in general, you've since the beginning and our interactions with each other, you have been very supportive and very encouraging of me as a filmmaker. And yeah, probably one of my most enthusiastic cheerleaders. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay, picture me with a cheerleading outfit, guys. Oh,
well, there's an image.
Funny. Let's start laughing now.
Yeah.
No, but then you made the tea. Yes. And you submitted that. And that was in 2019. And you submitted it to our film festival for 2020. But
yes, because we filmed that in September 2019. Yep. And
then March happened, March 19th.
Yep.
In 2020, and we all got screwed out of in-person anything, just about, unless you were going to the emergency room or had to buy food to, survive.
Yeah.
And so that kind of hurt. But you did come. We finally did meet, even though you didn't have that film with us in 2022.
2020, wasn't it 2021?
Yeah, it was 2022.
Or was it 2022? Okay.
Yeah, because that was the first one we were able to have after. We had to skip 2 years.
After the pandemic.
Unfortunately.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
But in January 2020 or something like that, I can't remember. I think it was actually around this time in October, we recorded that Zoom video panel about filmmaking with smartphones, and that was a lot of fun. And I remember calling you right before we did that.
Yeah.
And I remember calling you and saying, Levi, you really should make a feature film. I mean, you are so ready.
Yeah, I remember that.
But what I was getting to earlier was that I tend to see the potential of the person behind the camera, regardless of what film they make, before they realize it sometimes, because there's a little bit of, you're an artist, right?
Yeah.
If you're a filmmaker, you're creating art. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And some people that are listening are going, no, I have no 1 inch of art inside me. And I'm like, I'm going to argue with you. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So
I think everybody has creativity and
too.
a story to tell. Yeah.
It takes this. So I am glad to be right about that fact.
You basically bullied me to make a feature.
But no, I knew that you were ready and that it would be incredibly good if you were to embark on that journey. And I'm really glad that you did, because I'm not a mind reader or whatever you call those people that see the future. I mean,
a medium or a psychic.
Outside of that vision in 9/11 about mobile filmmaking, I don't do that. And so to see that reality evolve within your filmmaking skills, your talent, and the accolades that you've achieved and are about to achieve even more. I mean, this is just the beginning, believe it or not, Levi. You accomplished something incredible. The film is called Paralysis.
That. Yeah.
It's going to be out. When is it going to be out?
November 5th. Yeah. So it'll be available to rent or purchase off of Amazon, Vudu or Fandango, and Vimeo OTT, which is their new streaming service. They will also have physical media available to purchase as well. So if you want to get a Blu-ray or a DVD, you can also get that.
So guys, get out your vote and then go watch the movie.
Yes. If politics is not scary enough for you, go home and watch Paralysis after.
I can guarantee you the politics are going to be much scarier than... No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. It has been scary.
I may be wrong. Paralysis is a pretty spooky film.
It is.
I watched your new trailer yesterday. Yeah, it's done very well. You have a poster for that. So this is what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the technicalities that go into distribution, the deliverables, as Levi has mentioned, at least to me for like 1 million times, the deliverables that kept him chained to his distribution
computer
journey. And then we're also going to talk about things that may be a little too detailed, but you're going to appreciate this so much, because if you are learning how to make films, especially with smartphones, you're going to get so much information about what you need to do, not only during production, but in post-production, to ensure that you have a smoother ride than Levi did in distribution. So
trial
is that
by
fair?
fire for me. Yeah.
So I mentioned the poster, the image that you have. Where did that come from? Because I think we have a mutual friend that's involved in that.
Oh, well, that's actually a different poster. So there's a couple of things. We had our first poster, which was our festival run poster. And that was something that happened on set while we were setting up lighting, one of the crew saw how beautiful the lighting was with our actress in front of it. So it was like, get over there. And, we started taking photos. And then I was like, Bethany, also get over there. And we created the poster that was the original poster for the festival run.
Nice.
And it was great. It served its purpose. And then I don't remember when, but during the festival run, various people were finding us through social media. And then this gentleman named Austin found us through social media and really enjoyed the trailer that we had at that time, the images we were sharing. Obviously, the film was not yet available to screen anywhere, but he was inspired by it, and he created a image that ended up just being so cool that I asked him. I actually ended up paying him for it because I wanted access to that image so that we could use it. And so the image he created is the image that we use on all of our T-shirts. And so like I've made T-shirts for my team, and we all have that. And then
I'm still waiting for my T-shirt. Just FYI.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just kidding.
Okay. And then the final image, the current image, is once we were doing the deliverables. When I finished all of that, one of the things that they asked us to do, or me to do, was to upload 100 image captures or more. It had to be, I think it was a minimum of 100 image captures from the film, as well as any key art we'd been using. So that included the posters that we'd been using, maybe the fan art from Austin. All of that was included when I gave them the deliverables, and they went through that and came up with an image that they thought would do well on the streamers. So when people are going through the streamers and they happen to see this image, it's going to grab them in like the 0.3 seconds that it needs to and make them click on it. And so the current poster is something that the art department of our distribution company came up with. And it's very cool. It's very spooky. So, and it fits the tone of our film.
Let's explain what deliverables are for someone who doesn't understand.
Sure. Yeah, so when we went through the distribution, I guess I'll rewind a little bit. When you're done with your film, when you're done with the festival circuit, the next step is getting your film out there for people to see. And there are different ways you can do that. You can upload it yourself on Vimeo, on YouTube, on whatever. There's also ways for self-distribution if you want to go that route. I ultimately had done a lot, and my team and I had done a lot, that I was not feeling like I could handle distribution alone. So I wanted to find a distribution company if I could. And so I mean I've mentioned this before to various people, but we ended up a week before going to the American Film Market, a week before the American Film Market happened. And at the American Film Market, there are just a whole bunch of distribution companies who go there, and they're looking for people to collaborate with to produce maybe their next project, or people who are at my level who have a finished product and are looking for a distribution company to distribute their film on all the streamers. And so we naively made the choice to go a week ahead of time, and it was partially because we were bullied by Allison, who is my lead actress, and Allison's mom.
You're surrounded by bullies that are good for you.
I sure am. You bullied me to make a feature, and they bullied me to go to American Film Market. But we went, and honestly, we were very grateful we did, because there were incredible panels at the market that we learned a lot from, and we had some good meetings at the market as well. But it really helped me understand a lot more about the industry than I think I did before. I mean, for sure, I know that I understand more about the industry now than I did before. I will say I don't think that the American film market is right for everybody. I think that people need to research and decide if it's right for them. And I do think that in some ways they are, what's the word I'm looking for? sort of taking advantage of indie filmmakers in some ways. I think that they do that because it's a very expensive ticket, and they make it seem like that is the step you have to do in order for your film to be seen and to move forward in your career. And the reality is that's not true. You can move forward through self-distribution. You can move forward in many ways.
Especially nowadays compared to in the past. And I think part of what's happening with distributorship or distribution, to be correct, is that they're in the middle of a changing distribution.
There's a massive evolution happening in our industry.
Yes, and they're trying to hang on to what they can.
Yeah, they're trying to sort of grasp at straws to stay in control a little bit, I think. And like, I still think it's an incredible experience, and I still think it's a valuable resource, but I don't think it is the end all be all. Anyway,
a lot of filmmakers, to be quite honest, you know, not that I'm ever not. I don't know why I keep saying that. But to be honest, a lot of filmmakers are artists and storytellers, and they fall in love with the storytelling aspect. Yeah. They're not business people for the most part. Yeah. And it's a big learning curve to shift. And some people can't shift between those two things very easily.
Like switching into your business brain. Yeah. And I mean, I will say, like, for me, like, it's something I'm capable of doing. Yeah. It's not something I enjoy doing. So I am an artist, and that is my passion. So I learned through this experience and through going through the deliverables with the distribution company that we did end up with, that this might not be the side of the industry that I want to work on. Like in the future, I will be hiring somebody to handle the deliverables, the distribution, all of that stuff. But I think it was necessary for me, and I think it's smart for everybody to maybe go through it once, or at least be a part of the process, so that they understand how complicated, but also like the legality of it, the business aspects of it, and how you need to be aware of these things. Maybe even going into pre-production, you know, like there were aspects of post-production and distribution that ended up costing way more than what our original budget was. And so
let's talk about this really quick.
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt, but let's go back to answer the question. What are the deliverables? What is that?
So when you are selecting your distribution company, or, you know, when you decide who you want to go with, what they're going to do is they're going to send you a list of their requirements, the things that they need, the sort of specifications they need in order to get your film out there. And so it's very long, which is why I was saying, like, I ended up needing a legal advisor. Like I have a friend who's a lawyer, and she was not my entertainment lawyer for this, but she was somebody that I could go to with questions about legality. Can you read over this contract? Is there anything I need to be concerned with? Because these contracts are very technical. Yes. And then with the deliverables, like everything, it included, like, they needed the audio stems all separate, you know. They needed the film. They needed one with the closed captions text on like burned in, and one without. You know, they needed they needed the trailer with the same specifications. If we had a 5.1 surround sound mix, they needed that, which we did. So that was, you know, a complicated process that we had to go through as well. They needed like all of the images, all of the key images. There were contracts, like I had to. And this is, like, again, learning trial by fire situation. I made Paralysis with friends. It was a skeleton crew of 8 people. The cast was like 4 or 5 people max. So like we had the SAG contracts because we did this under the SAG sort of union rules. So we had that contract in place, but we didn't have other contracts. So I had to go back and, with my producer, create all of these contracts to send out to everybody who was involved, so that
as crew members, right? For
as
their
crew
union.
members,
Yeah.
yes. Like I did work on this project, and I give like ownership rights to the production company for this project, blah blah blah. And so it's like we basically had to dot our I's and cross our T's 4 years down the road, because it was things that we hadn't been aware of. And this is really naive and green of me to not have been aware of this, but like the chain of title, which is it can be a very complicated.
And there's also above the line and below the line, which makes a big deal when it comes to the business side.
Yeah. And so like getting all of that stuff together, and they give you 60 days to get all of this together. And so when you're a very small production like ours, it feels overwhelming and daunting, and it did. And I was so stressed. But if you crack at it and you just take it one thing at a time and you keep working at it, you will be shocked at the what you are capable of. We did ultimately end up going slightly over our 60 days, but it's because like during the process, I'd been getting them everything. And I think we had like 2 or 3 things left to get them. And our 60 days was coming up, and I reached out to them. I reached out to them, and I had said, I know that the 60 days is the deadline, but like, and we're very close, but there's a slight delay. Basically, long story short, I made some mistakes during the process with the audio in like, the film was a certain length when I thought that it was done. And so I had my sound mixer work on that version of it. And then I realized before the festival run that the film was not the right length. It was a little too long. There were things that I wanted to cut. So using the audio that he mixed, I went ahead and cut through and trimmed the film down. So it was 2 hours. I trimmed it down to 1:47. When it was at 1:47, that was the festival length. We went through the festival run. And going through the festival run, after seeing the film as many times as I did during the festival run, I realized, there's more that I think I can cut.
Because that's you.
Yeah, because I am an artist, and I am always trying to perfect things, and I don't think everybody will do this.
And a work of art is never complete.
Yeah, I mean, it's a living, breathing thing, and you can always go back into it. Like a painting, like I'm also a painter, and like I can be done with a painting, and 12 years later, I might be like, you know what? There's things I want to adjust.
Right.
And that's the beauty of being an artist, is that you've created something that is. It's a process versus product, or at least it should be if you're an artist. Like, and I am somebody that's very much about process versus product, but I also love the process of going back in and tweaking.
Right.
So I went back in, and for the distribution cut, I cut it down to 1:43. And that is the final cut. But then when it came time to fix the audio, like to just finalize the audio, and I brought my mixer back in, and I was like, can you do this? And he was like, yeah, great. And then I sent him the version of the film. He's like, oh, this is a completely different length and nothing matches up. So things
were out of sync, right?
So things were out of sync, and it was a very time consuming process, which is why it took us over 60 days. But as long as you're communicating with your distributor, and you have a good relationship, they may be flexible. But it is something that don't take it for granted, like communicate. And that was the important thing, is like during the deliverables, I was very communicative with them, like from start till finish. Like I was emailing them regularly. So so they knew where I was. And obviously
I got to hand it to you that I got to say compliment them also for being communicative and responsive towards you as well.
Yeah, like they like, and I'm very grateful for that. So it was a very good sort of working toward getting the deliverables to them. But yeah, it's a very daunting process. But I think the big thing is to like just take it one step at a time.
So what was it? What would you say? So during pre-production, for most films in film production, the pre-production process is pretty daunting as well, because you plan for the end result of distribution.
Yeah.
And you plan your marketing and all those things involved with it. When you were in pre-production for your film, you probably wanted distribution. You just didn't have the details on what that would take, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody on our team had gone through distribution. Like, my producer is incredible, but she works for Condé Nast, and so like she's gone through like deliverables for like for internet videos, you know, for interviews with celebrities. So like she was aware of some things, but it's such a smaller scale because it's not a feature film, you know, and it's not like
there's so much intellectual property involved.
Yeah. And so so nobody on the team had gone through distribution. So at the time, like, I mean, I already knew that we were splitting up because I've talked about this before, but we crowdfunded and I already knew we were splitting up the production costs and the post-production costs. So we did the production expenses for the first campaign. We raised that money. We shot the film on that money. And then when we came around to the post-production expenses, we asked for significantly less than we did for production because we were like, well, it's just, you know, to finalize the film and for the festival run. But we didn't take into account, you know, all of the expenses that go into deliverables. And I mean, besides like rehiring your mixer, like I had to for finalizing the audio, there's other things that you have to pay for. Like you have to have a lawyer look through and make sure that your title is not. There's not going to be like a compete, like there's not somebody who has a title similar that they can try to compete. You have to have error and omission insurance, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like there's all of these expenses that go along. You have to you have to have closed captions. You have to have subtitles in. There was somebody somebody has to go through and like write out where the timing of the subtitles for you. You have to hire somebody for that so that the distribution company knows this line is here from this second to this second, you know?
And subtitles and closed captions are two different animals. And
yes.
Closed captioning is way more complicated than subtitles.
Yeah. And it all costs money. And that is all things that we were not aware of. So ultimately, it did end up coming out of my pocket, which is it's fine. Like it's a lesson for future Levi to know to have more money readily available during post-production for deliverables and distribution. But yeah.
Gosh. So then in production, what are some key things, just name 3, that our listeners who would want to know about, some key things to think about, if you're going to distribute, and you can name mistakes or whatever, but just things that were a little bit surprising to you or that you were unaware of at the time.
During production or during...
Yeah,
or,
things that you
are
can
you saying like things that maybe I
production.
should have done?
Yeah, things that during production would have helped with the deliverables.
Sure. I think the big one was like the chain of title is very daunting. You have to have all those contracts in order. So the big thing is have contracts on, even if you're making things with friends, have contracts on hand at the beginning, like pre-production, like when you are deciding who's going to work on your film, create contracts that say, this production owns the rights. Like I'm putting my work into this, but I do not own like the rights to this. It is for this production, you know? Another thing is like, thankfully for us, it was less complicated because it is an original script written by me, directed by me. So like, but if it's based off of, somebody else's work, or if it's a script that you didn't write that somebody wants you to, produce, you have to have a contract with them stating, I was paid this much for this script.
Yeah.
So that, so it's like, it's basically showing that the production company has ownership and nobody else can claim that they have ownership over the project. So yeah, I think contracts is a massive thing.
Some of our listeners may be thinking, well, no one ever sues anyone for stuff like that. And I have to say that there's not, like if you get into an accident, there's a, statute of limitations that has to do with time. There is none with this stuff.
Yeah.
There is no statute of, so they can come back 10 years later when they think you're making a profit, which is when they reach out to an attorney and the attorney says, oh yeah, they're making a profit. Now you can sue them because before that, it's not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, and you never know, like life takes you on different journeys, not to like bring this to a weird place, but like my ex and I were together for 9.5 years and we worked on this project together.
That's right.
Yeah. And so like, even though we're no longer together and we're not as communicative as
it's still amicable,
we were, like, we're certainly not like friends. But he was still willing to sign the contract, 3 years later down the road, so like you never know where you're going to be with these people. So you might as well just have it ahead of time, that to have your bases covered,
Yeah. And contracts work both ways. They protect both you and the other person. So
yes. Yeah.
So what's another issue you might want to bring up?
I mean, my brain is now going to like.
All right. So what about frame rates and the consistency of that during production? Yeah. Did I hit something there?
Well, so yes, that also ended up being an issue for us. We filmed the film at 24 frames per second because that is sort of the cinematic look, right. And then a lot of festivals ask for you to submit your film at 24 frames per second because, again, that's sort of the cinematic look. Mm-hmm. However, deliverables, there is something different between
because
the 24
of the encoding.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I believe it's 23.98 frames per second is the encoding for television.
Yeah.
And so when the deliverables, the distribution company, they want your final film in 23.98 frames per second, which changes basically your audio and your visual will no longer sync.
Right.
Because it drops frames here and there. And so that was a major issue for us. And so I think the reality is I think you should be filming in 23.98 frames per second.
Just in case.
Just in case. And then you can always export at 24 frames per second. But for deliverables, but because that also, like, if you're editing at 23.98 frames per second, even the audio, then it will match up.
Yeah.
But for us, we were editing everything at 24 frames per second. So when the time came, nothing lined up. And I ended up
recorded the audio externally.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. We did a Zoom, we had a shotgun mic and lavs. So everything was externally recorded. Yeah. That I'm grateful that I did, like, I researched that, and it did seem like most streamers could handle 24 frames per second now. Like, the technology has changed, televisions have changed, but just to cover any bases, like, err on the side of caution, we lucked out because we were able to just send them the 24 frames per second. And I asked them, I was like, I'm having issues with this. Is this an issue? And they were like, just send it. It may cause issues down the road, but we'll let you know. And it looks like it hasn't because we're now on,
right.
But but maybe it did. Maybe we would have been on more streamers had we had a 23.98 frames per second version. So that another
OTT,
just error, green
OTT,
error.
which you mentioned earlier, is an acronym for over the top. And so that makes it available for Roku and Apple, you
Oh, I
know,
love that.
Apple TV
Okay,
and
cool.
all that stuff. So
Okay.
It-
So it's actually on more things than I thought.
yeah, it's a general term used for streaming films in up to that level.
Okay.
And so who knows, maybe it'll still get on there. The other thing that you don't know for sure is if they were cutting you a little bit of a break and said, you know, there's somebody in the inside saying, hey, you know, we can't use, and they said, you know what, just fix it. We put this guy through the ringer. Just fix that little thing. It's no big deal. So there's little things like that you don't know.
Yeah.
But generally, for planning purposes for our listeners, we would say heed these precautions.
Yes. Like, learn from my mistakes.
Because who knows, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and also don't freak out when these mistakes happen. Like, I'm grateful that I had a team that, like, because I am somebody who I think I can be pretty level-headed, but I have moments where I can sort of go into, oh God, what's going to happen? And I'm grateful to have had a team that was like, it's okay. Like, just ask, you know, don't panic. Like, so having people around me who sort of grounded me. I mean, Allison's mom was also so vital during this delivery. She was checking in on me, like, you know,
Aw.
you're doing good. And I'm like, I appreciate it so much.
did you
So,
get fruit
like,
baskets sent to you, or?
you know, I should send her a fruit basket to say thank you for all of your, you know, emotional support. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, when you filmed this, outside of just having a bunch of problems for everyone to listen to, you did shoot this in the log format, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So why don't you share just a little bit about that process? Because you also, we're talking about a horror film that was, most of it, even though there were some great, beautiful scenes shot during the day, you also had to deal with night scenes and things like that. Did shooting in log actually hurt that? I mean, provide any relief for that process and lighting? And just share a little bit more about that for everyone.
I mean, I think shooting in log ultimately did help us. I think it really helped us in the color grading later, because we could pull push down on the highlights or pull up on the shadows without losing a lot of
Depth of field.
But it was still, you know, like I think like shooting in low lighting on a cell phone, no matter what, is always going to be not problematic, but troublesome. It's going to be complicated, just because the light sensor is so small in an iPhone.
What kind of lighting equipment were you using?
We had quite a few different things. We had softboxes, we had LED panels, we had cube lights, we had I think it's GODOX LEDs, Godox, I think is the name of the brand. They're like $20 on B&H, I think. And they are so helpful. So we had like every lighting equipment that I've had throughout my entire tenure as a filmmaker. So it's like the worst lighting that I have through the best lighting that I have. And we were using all of it. Because I mean, some of our takes, she's walking through her house, and it's night. So we're imitating moonlight. So we have all of these lights set up outside, shining light through the window. And then we have to have enough light in the room so that the film isn't grainy. So we're like bouncing light off the ceiling in certain rooms. Or we have like the little cube lights taped up above the sink, so it looks like a sink, or like a practical light in the room shining down on her. So yeah, it was like we used quite a bit as far as lighting, specifically for those scenes that happened at night.
Yeah.
Because you have to overcompensate, because the reality is the iPhone or any phone still cannot handle low lighting situations, and then you just pull down in post, you know?
And what is the log capture? Explain to that. I just, after
Sure.
asking you that, I thought, well,
Yeah.
maybe some people don't understand even what that is.
Yeah, so log kind of grayscales everything, so it sort of pulls down the brights and it brings up the shadows, so everything's kind of a little more gray or monotone color, so that
And it
later
flattens out the...
it flattens everything, so that later on in post production, you can when you're adjusting the color, you can really push into those darks and pull into those brights, so that your work isn't overexposed or underexposed. It really flattens it so that so your work isn't over or underexposed.
Yeah. And also for the colors as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun color grading this film. And I think that and like if you want to hire people, do that, but I enjoyed this, and I did color grading on LumaTouch, which is another app. And I love them. And then I would export it into Final Cut. So I've mentioned this before, but we did it kind of backwards, because you usually color grade at the end. But like during production, we had somebody on set who, as we were every take, we would call out, "Oh, that's the take," like we'd film however many takes we needed, and then we'd be like, "Oh, it was take 2 was the take that we want to use," and so they'd write a little note on set saying take 2. So then when it came to post production, I knew exactly what take we were going to be using, so I would take that take, put it into LumaTouch, color grade it, and then put it into Final Cut, so that when I was actually editing the film, everything was already what I wanted it to be. And then I just, I did some fine tuning in Final Cut with some of the color, but for the most part, it was done.
And for
LumaTouch.
anyone out there that's using Resolve, you can do the color grading in Resolve as well.
I am so excited to start playing with Resolve. I have a friend who only edits in Resolve now, and that is a program I'm excited to start playing with.
Now, did you use I'm trying to remember. Did you use Filmic Pro's log capture?
Yes.
Because I heard that's a little different than the ProRes log capture from the 15 Pro and the Pro Max and the 16 Pros for the iPhone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we had an 11 Pro and a 12 Pro, an iPhone 11 Pro and 12 Pro, and we used the log capture in Filmic Pro at the time. I am going to say out loud, I no longer use Filmic Pro.
Right.
And that's just my own personal choice, because I don't like the parent company that took over. But that's my own personal bias.
You are basically sharing the sentiments of an entire mobile filmmaking community. So there's no issue with that. But I heard, with the 15 Pro and the Pro Max, when Apple introduced the log feature with ProRes on the iPhones, in these particular phones, they also including the color encoding scheme for ACES, which is the Academy something. I forgot the acronym for that.
Okay.
And when they did that, basically, supposedly from what I've heard, so I don't have the pleasure of having, the 15 Pro or the Pro Max, but...
Well, I have the 15 Pro.
Well, there you go. So you're going to find out. But ACES is basically the Academy Color Encoding System.
Okay.
And it's created under the auspices of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Okay.
So what that's going to bring to you, like if you had produced or filmed it using that, it probably would have made a difference in the quality of your deliverables and the headaches that you experienced as well.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's why I'm bringing that up.
Sure.
Because of course 3 years is a long time, and there may be some listeners out there who know all this and thinking, but I want you to know there's other aspects to distribution that are really important. And the other part of it is the audio. The audio is crucial. And
Yeah.
so externally recording that, regardless of what iPhone you have, is majorly an advantage that you can manipulate and tweak outside of the video.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is a naive statement, but I don't think had we only had, no, I can guarantee, had we only had the mobile phone audio, there's no way that we would have gotten into the festivals we got into or the distribution deal. Like if you should definitely be recording your audio separate, just because it allows more manipulation and editing, and it's just
processing.
The quality is going to be so much better if you do external audio as opposed to in-camera audio.
Yeah, we're not talking about a documentary, even though you should do that for that too. But we're not even talking about that. We're talking about cinema.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yes.
that's and then we're talking about, and then to go even further, you're talking about the horror genre.
Yeah.
Audio has a lot to do with the effects.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite things, the reality is like, I mean, like when you do audio, sometimes you have to ADR, which is, you know, in post-production, very complicated and technical process. But even still, like there's other things, like there's fun little moments that I know what the audio is that like, I mean, I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast with you, but like there are bones breaking, like the sound of bones breaking every time that the hag is on screen or every time a demon is on screen. And what that actually is celery breaking.
That's so awesome.
It's so fun to me that like there's different things, different like surprises that a filmmaker knows what it is, but the audience doesn't, you know?
And sound effects are very subtle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's moments when she's walking down the hallway and she's breathing. And because like I was the camera operator in that moment, I'm walking backwards down the hallway. I have somebody behind me also recording audio. We could hear our footsteps. So what we ended up doing is we also took moments where she had just been walking alone, and we took out the audio from that moment because there were 3 sets of footsteps walking down the hall, and we just layered the audio from another scene onto that where she's walking down the hall, and it lines up.
Called
and then
cheating.
Yes, and it's so fun to do that.
I know.
So it's like a magical, like you feel like a magician because people have no idea that like these aren't the things that happened in the moment, you know?
Yeah, and cheating, by the way, you guys, is actually a good thing in filmmaking. It's where a lot of the creativity and the magic happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of magic, I mean, we're again going back to the distribution and the technicalities and everything.
Yeah.
Are you ready to film another feature with everything you've learned and your new 15 Pro?
Well, so my next project is not like I've been developing another project since I finished Paralysis.
Yeah.
And I have to like take breaks every once in a while because I've been working on the deliverables or I've been, you know, now I'm promoting it. But I'm about 84 pages into a screenplay, and that one I don't think will be filmed on a phone. I know.
I'll still support you, Levi.
Yeah, it is a massive project, and I don't think that I don't know if I could do it on a phone just because I don't know if it fits the project. That being said, and I said this in Australia as well when I was at that festival, I absolutely plan on doing a sequel to Paralysis at some point.
Yeah, you've mentioned that here.
Yeah,
actually,
there's a character in Paralysis who I think there is more story to dive into, and I would probably film that using a phone as well. just because it's to to complete the franchise, if you will.
I think speaking of a franchise,
franchise.
one of the cool things about that is the fact that now when you're promoting it, you have an even bigger opportunity to bring that to life, because you had those dolls and things like that, and it could help with your marketing. But depending on how that goes.
Yeah, okay. I'll go ahead and say this because this is coming out tomorrow. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll get the shit ready today for this. But one thing that we plan on doing is the T-shirts. We are going to make available for people to purchase, so that like the Paralysis T-shirts will be available very soon. And yeah, it's exciting that like there'll be merch out there for people. Oh, and that's actually going back to deliverables. That's something in the contract that we retain the rights to. So in your deliverables contract, they'll tell you exactly what they want, like how long the contract lasts, what it entails, what they have the rights to, what you have the rights to. So I have the rights to do a sequel, a remake, anything like that. And the distribution company can't do anything. I also maintain the rights to all merchandise. And so yeah, we're gonna be playing around with some of the merch.
And also, now I know you don't have to answer this if you feel uncomfortable with this, but I just have to ask. So when the contract ends, whenever that ends, that gives you full ownership of the film again, right?
I mean, I still technically have full ownership of the film. Like the film
because it's leasing. They're leasing the rights.
Exactly. They're leasing the rights. But yes, when the contract ends, I am once again the sole owner of the film.
Yeah. And of course, most distribution companies, and I'm not saying this for you, but they usually like to retain the rights as long as possible so they can milk it.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, Levi, what would you say to some of our listeners who just went through this journey with you? And because first of all, is there something that we missed?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Second, one thing I think is important, what would you say to them to inspire them? Because it seems like it's a lot of work. And look, there are filmmakers who love the craft of indie filmmaking, and they will self-distribute, and they really just want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But what would you say makes it worth going through this?
I mean, honestly, I think that answer is going to be different for everybody, and I think that answer is going to be different for every project. Like for me, this felt right for this project to go through a distribution deal. The next project, maybe not. Maybe we'll self-distribute. I don't know. It's whatever feels right, but also I think like you have nothing to lose, like.
Do you gain more exposure, more reach, a wider reach, portfolio-wise, your reputation, all that stuff?
I think for me with this particular project, one of the reasons I wanted to go through a distribution company is because I had done so much of this process on my own. I wore so many hats during this. I was a producer, I was an editor, I was an actor, I was the writer, I was the director. So, and I mean, I helped with all the sound design stuff. Like it's a lot, and so I think with this, I wanted a team of people behind the project, putting it out there. So it wasn't just me. And so like this way, I knew that there would be the potential for it being more widely available, but also to use that in the future as like a calling card. Like, look at this, I shot this film on an iPhone. We got a distribution deal. Please support us on our next project. Maybe we won't have to do crowdfunding, or maybe we'll find a production company that wants to work with us. Maybe somebody will see this film and reach out and be like, hey, I'd love to collaborate, but like, I think again, the answer is going to be different for each project and each person, but I think there's much to learn from the process. I think that there's the business side of things to learn from it. I think there's connections and networking in the industry. Like I now have a group of people that I've worked with that I'd never worked with before, and maybe I can call on them in the future and be like, hey, do you want to distribute my next film? So it's just like
I would say it's also a benefit for them to receive credit on a film that has this type of distribution.
What do you mean?
So when you have credits on a film, it makes a difference when you're going to work on another film. That you have credits on a film that
were distributed by
as most professionally handled or whatever as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a gift also for them. Something they entered this as, it's an indie film. Oh, it's shot with a phone, but Danny Boyle, tell that to the people on his crew who signed up before he decided to shoot it on an iPhone 15.
Yes. I just posted a TikTok about that. I've been following that as well, and I just posted a TikTok about being an iPhone filmmaker and other directors who have been iPhone filmmakers before Danny Boyle, and how it is a very viable option for filmmakers now.
And we've been there for years before
for a decade.
Someone
we've been doing
this $75 million. No, but it's in 2020, after 2020, I think it was in 2021, 2022, I can't remember, but I remember writing something and saying, in this mobile filmmaking industry, there are a lot of, film festivals like myself, right? And the filmmakers. And they're always like, is it mainstream? Is it mainstream? Is this it? When Tangerine came out. When Steven Soderbergh made his first, then the second. Everybody was always like, is it now finally mainstream? And I said, look, if you're making movies, feature films, because that's where you get, distribution like this on a streaming service. If you are making a feature-length film with your phone, it doesn't matter that it's on a phone. What matters is the outcome. And you're getting it into streaming services, and you're looking at a window on your phone or on your computer or whatever. What's the selection? And your film is there next to, I don't know, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's
I'm very excited to see my film streaming on a platform next to bigger budget movies.
Exactly. Yeah. So the mainstream is in the distribution, because that's when people see it. That's when people form an opinion of it the most, right? Yeah. And so that's the mainstream way of making films is, yes, there's pre-production, there's production, and then there's post-production. And at the end of that post-production process is the distribution. So yes, there are filmmakers, our friends, James Smith and Caroline Spence, Ryan McDonald, all these people have films that they have distributed to those major, from Amazon Prime for Ryan, but also for Caroline and James. They're in Tubi, they're on Apple, they're on Amazon, they're in all these other streaming networks, and some of our other friends as well. And so, we've reached the mainstream years ago. Yeah. You don't need to look, if it takes $75 million to convince you as an independent filmmaker that maybe you should try making that story that's close to your heart that you want to make into a film, and you can get a major distribution deal with Sony or something like that. Yeah. If that's what inspires you, just go for it. The whole point is that you make your film.
Yeah, tell the story that you want to tell. Don't wait around. Just make it happen.
Yeah. And then later you can seek the distribution, but it has been mainstream for some time. Yeah. And as you know, Levi, my heart is with all the filmmakers out there, and has been since before the iPhone 4.
Yeah. I think that's what I filmed my first, that's what 90 Seconds to Live was filmed on, was an iPhone 4S.
Yeah, probably 4S because it was 1080 HD. Yeah. Yeah. And the 4 was 720.
Yeah, it was the 10S.
Yeah. But
or 4S, excuse me, 4S.
So, just guys, you don't what happened there, basically it's pay to play. We've got a major director that said we're going to film it with an iPhone, And I think
with an A-list cast.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got
Isn't Comer, what's her first name? Something Comer is in that movie.
Yes. And also you have, oh my God, Cillian
Cillian Murphy.
And so you've got Academy Oscar winners and things like that.
Yep.
You also have the prequel to that, well, two actually, but the major one is 28 Days that had a very big success.
Yeah.
You have things like that. And it, of course, I don't expect, I think you're worth it, Levi, but I don't expect that you make the sequel to Paralysis and that Sony is going to give you, anything near
$75 million.
$75 million. And the going rate is like 30 and 50. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is kind of a major deal, but it's
I would
also
be
an
happy
experiment.
with 1 million. My God.
Yes. I think it's also an experiment, quite honestly, for the studios.
Big studios. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an experiment for them. Like, has the iPhone, and I'd like to say Androids too, but unfortunately, and they're going to have it eventually. They're going to have the log capture and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any Androids yet that have reached that level.
Yeah, I agree.
But I know for a fact that they're working on it. And who knows, for all I know, it's like next week it'll be announced. But I think that's where they need to go, But for film festivals like ours and for this podcast who wants to inspire you to make films, it doesn't matter to us if you shot your film, on a $75 million budget. Yeah. Or a $2 budget.
Or a $0 budget. Exactly. Yeah. 90 Seconds to Live, we shot that with no money. Like, we just shot that movie. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it was a great way to tell a story.
Yeah.
The way that you did it. And also the tea. I just will always love that film because it also...
I also love the tea.
It sort of confirmed to me. I mean, I was just like, when I watched the tea, I was like, man, this guy is ready for feature films. Because of all the details that you put into it. And the acting was also superb.
And I will be honest, I had so many other short films between 90 Seconds to Live and The Tea that I wanted to submit to you. Mm-hmm. But at the time, there was a time limitation on the short films. Yeah. And they always were too long, the ones that I did. So I was like, well, I guess I can't submit to Susy's. Yeah. And I cut The Tea down because it was originally, I think, like 50 seconds longer. Mm-hmm. And then I saw that your festival was the length that it allowed, and I cut it down so that we could submit.
Well, and some people, just if you're listening and you've had this little bit of a quarrel with me, there are some films that can be cut down and still maintain the integrity of the story.
I mean, and The Tea was better for it. Like, we didn't need the additional 50 seconds. It was much better for it.
Well, there have been some that have done that and actually won. So, so that happens too. But not to go too much into the film festival because in the end, this is about you guys and
telling your story. And
it's why. And by the way, Levi, thank you so much for coming back on the show today.
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you for asking me back and giving me this platform to talk about the project. And, absolutely. I'm so grateful. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for listening. We will share, of course, like we always do on the notes, the links we'll share a link to your new trailer.
Yes.
And we'll share the link to, do you still have no website or do you?
We don't have a website. We just have, I have a website. Yeah. I don't post on it very much, but the social medias is really where we do our posting.
If I can just give you some advice.
Get a website?
Yeah, make a website, even if it's a very one-pager thing so that you're not always depending on social media.
Sure.
Just because that way, you're selling T-shirts and things like that and, it might be helpful. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think
I know.
It just seems daunting and overwhelming.
I'll help you in every way I can.
Okay. All right.
I'm even saying it publicly.
I appreciate that.
All right. Say goodbye to our listeners.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you all for listening and go check out Paralysis.
And cut.